but I'll probably work at least another 10 years. Whether that's transition to one of those or, if I'm really enjoying it and it's the kind of job you can work late into your years. So
Right.
it really just, I'm going to kind of play it by ear.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast, brought to you by Advanced Services and Fuse Networks. My name's Galen.
I'm Joe.
We're coming at you from the Creative Block Studios in Seattle, Washington. So, Joe, for our new listeners and viewers tuning in on the live stream too, how did we start our podcast?
Sure. So it first started out as a Facebook group page where the purpose was to bring businesses together into an environment where they can talk to each other, communicate, ask questions, share tips on how to be a better business and how to run their business better. Because we're a marketing company, we get asked a lot of questions outside of just marketing. And so selfishly, we wanted to be able to learn. So we bring on different guest speakers to talk about all types of topics related to business.
Awesome. And today we're glad to have in studio a real guest, not someone AI generated or anything. We have Mr. Rob Idens joining us in studio. And today's topic is transitioning a legacy business. So before we get into the topic, Rob, could you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yeah. So I'm Rob Idens. I'm a local boy born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, fifth generation, I believe. And I graduated from Kentwood. After that, I joined the United States Marine Corps, spent 4 years in there, got out, graduated from UW and Seattle U Law, and ultimately started a law firm.
Awesome.
Cut some stuff out in there. Oh,
Right.
I'm married.
Okay. Yeah.
Married,
Got
have some kids maybe?
I got
Yeah.
2 kids. I have a 11-year-old daughter, Grace, and a 9-year-old son, Bert.
And the name of your law firm?
Is the Ens Law Group.
Awesome.
And Iden's Injury Law.
All right.
Opened a second location.
Nice. Congrats.
Thank you.
So before we get started on the topic, we like to get to know our guests. So the first question is, Rob, what are some early lessons learned as an entrepreneur?
Well, number one, I think the biggest lesson I learned was that I'm not just an attorney. I'm a businessman. And you have to carve out time to work on your business because you can spend all day and night just working on client needs, but if you don't work on the business, you're not going to move forward.
Awesome.
Nice. What's been the best piece of advice that you've been given?
I've received a lot of good advice over the years. One of them is you can't wear the $20 an hour hat, right? You can't do everything. You have to delegate to elevate.
I like
And
that.
so I
Delegate.
finally learned how to do some delegating, and it's been working.
Awesome. So why is marketing important?
I mean, marketing is important just, for client acquisition, right? You've got a certain sphere of influence, and our company has traditionally been very heavy on referrals. A good reputation from the preceding attorney, and we've kept that reputation. But that's the sphere of influence, right? So marketing can get you outside that sphere of influence to the people you don't know or that they know, and get leads that way.
Awesome.
Nice.
So now we come to the part of our podcast, our Advanced Services Pump You Up Quote of the Day. So we ask our guests a motivational quote. And since it's baseball season, I asked Rob for a quote, and from Babe Ruth. Joe, you mind reading it for us,
Sure.
please?
I swing big with everything I got. I hit big or I miss big. Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Why does that resonate with you?
That resonates with me because, as an entrepreneur, you're going to have failures, and you have to go ahead and take those failures in stride. You're going to swing big, and you're not always going to hit big. You're going to miss big.
Right.
In fact, out of every 10 ideas I have, probably 9 of them are losers, but one of them, I'm going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's a great mentality to have in business. So now we have our Fuse Networks Did You Know segment. So for today's Did You Know segment, you mentioned you served the country in the United States Marine Corps. Before we kind of get into transitioning into a legacy business, what are some of the values you learned in the Marine Corps that has helped you become, a successful business person?
Right. So first and foremost, just being a team player, honor, courage, commitment, integrity, All those things, they're not just punchlines. It's how you live and what I've taken with me from the core into the practice of law.
Awesome. And you have been the Iden's Law Group is a client of Valor Marketing, and actually you were one of our first ValorCares winners on our initiative that we have. Can you just refresh our audience what our ValorCares initiative was when we had it?
Yeah. So the purpose was during COVID, we wanted a way to give back to businesses in general, whether they're local to us here in Washington State or whether in another state. But the goal was to just be able to give back. And the way that we can give back the best was to build an online foundation for business. And the best online foundation is a website. So we had people submit, and then we chose winners each month, and then we built out a free website for them.
Awesome. So since we
And I've got a lot of compliments on that website too, so thank you.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So how when we built your website, it wasn't always Iden's Law. Can you tell the story of the practice on what it was before when you came aboard and kind of the early steps of that, what that transition looked like?
Yeah, so I partnered up with an attorney, Dave Gagley, back about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And we weren't partners right away. I moved into the office and he was just kicking me down business, and I was running my own firm, which I'd been running out of my house for a few years, poverty level. I was struggling. So it was funny. That was going along swimmingly for, 8-9 months. And we realized pretty quickly that it would be a good partnership. We were so busy working in the business, though, we weren't able to work on the business and get that drafted up. But when we finally did, we partnered up and we came up with a structured buyout plan for the firm too, because he was in his 60s and realizing that he wasn't getting any younger, and so yeah, that's how that started.
And what kind of law firm? What laws do you areas of practice?
Right. So when I came in, he was practicing estate planning,
Okay.
which is wills, trusts, powers of attorney, probate when someone passes away, and then elder law, which also encompasses all of that too, but
Right.
some Medicaid planning and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then what did you practice?
And then there was also very little bit of personal injury at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was pretty much acting as a general practitioner, although I had morphed into doing estate planning because so many of my friends had kids and were married and didn't have anything in place. And so that kind of naturally involved. I don't think any kid grows up thinking, I want to be an estate planning attorney. Right. But it happens. So.
Right.
Millions of cybercriminals are out there on a daily basis trying to steal your information. It's not a matter of if, it's when. Small businesses account for 58% of cyber attacks annually. So help your company fight cybercrime and mitigate risk by being proactive. Call Fuse Networks, your local Seattle IT experts at 206-701-6040 for a complimentary IT network and security assessment.
So what did that look like from you go from Gagley, you have this buyout of transitioning to Iden's Law, because when I had first met you, it was still with Gagley, and you always, when we had first discussed things, there was a point that you wanted to build an Iden's Law when we got to the point of building your website and doing marketing for you.
Right.
So share that kind of experience with other business people, entrepreneurs out there who may be in a similar situation, not necessarily an attorney, but you work for a firm, a company, and the owner has a exit plan. Like, well, in like 6 years, 10 years, whatever it is, I want to get out. Would you be interested? Tell us about like that mindset and how you prepared yourself to kind of transition into making it your firm.
It's a great question. So Mr. Gagley and I came up with a great plan, which was he kind of brought me in at a higher level of pay initially. We were just splitting 50-50 down the line, even though he was generating 80% of the revenue.
Right.
So that was good for me.
Very beneficial for you.
Good for
Right.
me early on. I was a fan. And then he slowly started cutting down his hours. Each year, he took another day off. And we kept that 50-50 relationship going,
Right.
even when I was generating more revenue.
Right.
And then it was really supposed to be for 3 years, and then he would, wind up. But the truth is, he kept working another 3 years after that, kept down a little bit more, and we kept a partnership share.
Right.
And it was kind of a 10-year buyout. That was a 10-year plan. And so the last 7 years, I would pay him, a percentage of the gross revenue for the firm. But he kept working those, like I said, another like 4 years or so.
Yeah.
So, well, we're in the last year of it now. So he's going to get 3 more checks from me, and then we're going to go celebrate. We head to Hawaii together or something.
So is there like
But
a partnership agreement you would have to put together for something like that to take
yes,
place?
yeah, we drafted up a partnership agreement that took into account the different benchmarks and
So when was day one of the Iden's Law Group then?
yeah. So day one, I believe that was about 3 years ago on January 1st, 2.5 or 3 years ago. And I was actually a little nervous about transitioning from the Gagley Law Group to the Iden's Law Group just because he had such a great reputation in the community. I was wondering, are the leads going to fall off? Will the referrals fall off? And that's about the time we brought you on,
Right.
too, or maybe a little bit before that. So you really helped us make sure that didn't happen. In fact, not only did that not happen, we've grown considerably over the past 4 years.
So tell us what that has looked like from the client perspective of working like with a marketing company, which happens to be us. How has that helped your growth specifically with your firm and now your new firm you're pivoted off?
Well, I'm not sure I understand your question.
So how much has internet marketing or with the services Valor Marketing has provided you help fuel the growth of Iden's and now
Yeah.
the Iden's
And the
Gagley
caveat to
Group?
that is because you're going from a legacy business, so you're Gagley Law. Now you're transitioning to a brand new name of a firm,
Right.
right? So no one knows who really Iden's Law is unless they have referrals to you. So you have to do marketing in order to transition from now I'm Gagley Law, now I'm Iden's Law. This attorney's going away. This is going to be the prominent attorney. How do you incorporate marketing into that to help with that transition?
Right. So yeah, having you guys do the SEO for us and getting our name out there and prominent out there has been, instrumental because almost it seems like everybody's Googling it.
Yeah.
And you Google near me, attorney near me, estate planning attorney near me, and we're popping up there on first page. We've conveyed the message to our current client base also through newsletters that we've drafted up and told them about the transition and all that. Yeah.
Was there a point in the beginning where maybe on the website it says primarily or previously known as Gagley Law, now we're Iden's Law? Do we do anything like that?
I don't think we did that. I think we just used the newsletter, or maybe you can refresh my memory.
I think
Galen,
what we
but-
did was on the Google business page, it was Iden's Law, formerly Gagley Law, for about a 3-month period.
Yeah, it's true.
Because
Okay,
people
yeah.
were calling still, knowing the Gagley phone number, but asking for Rob or some of the staff there.
Do we do like a 301 redirect?
We did
So
eventually.
can you explain what a 301 redirect is?
So a 301 redirect is when a business has, in this case, an existing domain. They start a new website, a new domain name, so your www.yourbusiness.com, and your previous domain, if they type that in, we would just point it to the newer website, the new domain,
Like a call forwarding.
like similar to a call forwarding for a period of time. Eventually, that went away when we ranked higher and higher. But for businesses that have that, it's often a tactic internet marketing companies will do, so you don't lose that traffic,
Right.
the people, the branding, the loyalty that you have.
Okay.
So talk to us now. You spun up a different firm, or almost another side firm with the injury side. So tell us kind of what spawned that, and why not keep it just all from one practice?
Right. Yeah. Well, even going back to the days before I joined up with Gagley, I had some personal injury cases, and I enjoyed doing it because, the insurance companies will just take advantage of people. They'll
Yeah.
get in an accident, get hurt, and they call up and offer them $300 for their pain and suffering, and they might need surgery or something.
Right.
It's just like, so I didn't like the fact that they're out there bullying people. So I felt good about helping them. And that's kind of where that started. And it was just, those things where the friends come in and say, hey, I got in an accident. Can you help me out? And I'd already studied up on it. So I'm like, yeah, I can do that.
Is that during your broke years?
Yeah, that was during the broke years. Yeah.
Broke years.
Yeah.
And then since then, we just continued to get clients in for that. And we started putting an emphasis into it and then hired a team around it. And then ultimately we broke off because for a couple of reasons. Number one, we needed more space. So I had to get another building. And second, because let's see, more space, and
Bigger team.
It was for marketing,
Yeah.
All right.
right? Because the estate planning, elder law, probate, that's kind of a very niche-y, dealing with the elderly, and so that didn't really fit in with personal injury, and we wanted to carve that off and have a unique uh, DBA for that, for those purposes.
Okay.
So let's put the business hat on. So, transitioning from a legacy business. So, for people in that similar spot, what are one or two things that you learned that you would share with other people, other business owners similar to wanting to take that path? Is there something like if I ever do this again, these are one or two things that I'm going to always do? What would be those like one or two tips of advice?
Well, so that's a kind of a line between, transitioning the business, number one, and working on the business, right? So you have to carve out time to work on the business, and that includes the partnership agreement, right? You give it a lot of thought about how long you want this to go, what the terms are, whether the terms are reasonable, and whether you're going to be able to do that and continue to grow, or is it going to crimp the business? We did something that was really fair and also didn't hamstring the business so that I could take a good portion of profits and reinvest it into growth and development. So you have to have a mind on, is this going to take all the cash flow or not? Because the cash is the breadth of the business.
Especially
Right.
for a PI attorney, right? You're
Yeah,
you're settling cases years in advance, but you still got to pay all your office fees and experts and all that
Exactly.
kind of
That
stuff.
can be very cyclical on when you get paid.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be one point. Another one would just be, well,
Well, I know that you talked about investing back in the business. So I know you've invested time in other like mastermind groups, like specialty groups to really grow.
Yeah.
And I've seen it firsthand where you've accelerated your growth. Can you talk about the value of in reinvesting in terms of the business side of talking with other attorneys, other business people on helping you grow?
absolutely. Yeah. It's so important to mastermind with like-minded individuals, fellow entrepreneurs, people that are interested in growth and development personally and professionally, and to have that mindset, and really working on the business. So, one of the first things they tell you is you're not just an attorney, you're a business owner, and you have to act like it, and you got to work on the business, right? So having that group of people to hold you accountable, you're having weekly meetings, you're setting goals, and then you're coming back and you're reporting on those goals, and they recommend you set rewards and leverages in case you don't, what's the penalty for not accomplishing your goals. So the accountability is really important. Yeah.
Okay. Did you invest? I know what a lot of law firms will do is like go buy a building versus leasing a building. Has that taken place yet?
Yeah, so we bought, I think it was two and a half years ago or so, we bought the building we're in that my partner had been in for the past 35 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I bought it with the dentist next door.
Okay.
And then the new building too, I went out and got an SBA loan, was able to purchase that one.
Can you talk to our audience about your process in getting an SBA loan? Because I think a lot of businesses, they
a
go out
nightmare.
there. Well, as far as like businesses, they're like, well, how do I get this money? And a lot of people don't even think about SBA.
Right. So, I mean, you really have to have your finances in order. Luckily, I've got a great billing agent and, entering all the books and everything, and then a CPA that's preparing the books and the records, and the SBA, they want it all. Then I must have sent them 100 different pieces of information and resent stuff. I mean, it was not an easy process. It took, I don't even know, maybe 60 hours of my time over a period of 3 months.
Wow.
Had to get multiple extensions, and the seller was getting a little antsy about the whole process. But we got through it. I mean, I'm glad I did, but it was a process. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart.
But the length of turn on an SBA loan is what, typically longer for your payback?
I think it's a 30-year payback.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know very many business loans that are going to give you money and wait 30 years to get it all back.
Right. That's the advantage of
Right.
that program.
There's a prepayment if you pay it off early. They have prepayment penalties. So.
Okay.
So on the flip side of it, are there one or two things that you would advise not to do, like things not to do in this process of buying out, the business owner Were there things that you saw like, oh man, those are red flags? If I went through this process again, I would stay away from these two things or one or two things.
Well, that's a good question. I can't think of anything offhand because, we dealt with everything and we really just came from a place of transparency and honesty and trust in each other. If you didn't have that, then I'm sure there would be some additional red flags. You'd want to do some due diligence but being in the firm and seeing the value that it held, I really didn't have any concerns with what transpired going forward.
So this model of
But
the transaction, did you see another attorney that you counted on for advice, like who did something similar, or was when you worked with Mr. Gagley, this is your first go around, and you kind of just found a common ground with him of like a succession plan almost?
yeah, it really was. And I kind of relied on him. He was really the drafter of the plan.
Okay.
I definitely got in there and made some edits to it. And, we had a meeting of the minds about it. But, yeah, I mean, got to be careful.
Because
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
guys in the M&A space, when you're buying a business, some people just want to, all right, this is the value of my business. And a lot of times it's not the value of the business, it's the value of like the equipment. And they're just like, all right, what's the highest number I can get? Great, get the check, walk away. And then you have all these employees you still have to worry about. Where in some cases, the person who's selling really doesn't give a shit about the people that he's leaving behind. In some businesses, you're taught when you buy a business, you really want to worry about like how that transition is going to work. In this case, Mr. Gagley worked with you. In a lot of business buyouts, the same. You're going to get a payout. Then you're going to work there for however long. You're going to make sure that your employees are still taken care of because you want to make sure that whoever is purchasing the business is still going to take care of the employees you're leaving behind.
Right.
So I think like how you guys did it was good because it sounds like you still cared about the people within the practice because they're going to stay there after when Mr. Gagley leaves.
It was funny when we were together, there was only, one or two others. A longtime paralegal and then a rotating front desk person. So we were really at 3 or 4 employees at that time. And, now we're up to 13
Oh, wow.
in 2 different locations, including 4 attorneys. So, this plan, I got a great firm from Dave, and we've, nurtured that client list and taken care of them and continued the great service. And where am I going with that?
So where do you see the firm in the next 5 to 10 years then? In a perfect world, what does that look like?
Yeah, I can see us growing quite a bit. So
Maybe bringing on, does there come a point now where how old are you?
I'm 54.
54. So 54 and Mr. Gagley retires at what age?
He retired at, boy, how was it? Like 72.
So are you going to work another however many years to match that? Or are you
No,
looking at
no.
transitioning in the next 5 years, 10 years to where some of your attorneys that are with you now become partners and then they take over?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I used to think I would work late like Gagley, but as the years ticked on, I've started to reevaluate, like, what sort of things do I want to do in my life, and making that bucket list and
Right.
and those things. So I'm going to give some thought to that. Bust out the journal and give it some serious thought. But I'll probably work at least another 10 years. Whether that's transition to one of those or if I'm really enjoying it and it's the kind of job you can work late into your years. So
Right.
it really just, I'm going to kind of play it by ear.
Okay.
But I am definitely positioning the firm so that it's marketable down the road, putting all the systems in place and everything so that if it does need to be sold, I'll have a good product to sell.
So if you have a thought of working that long, there must be satisfaction. So what gives you the greatest satisfaction doing what you do, serving your community? What is that, almost what we like to ask, what's your why and why
Yeah.
you do?
Well, I
what
can
you do?
honestly tell you, I've never drove to work dreading going.
Yeah.
I've been tired. I haven't had good sleep some nights, drive in and you're like, oh, I'm so tired. But I really like the job. I love getting into the conference room with the clients and getting to know them and their families and what's going on and helping them out and just really getting that rapport. That's one of the things I miss about the Marine Corps is the rapport, the camaraderie. But I do get some of that in the conference room. I get to meet all these new people and their families, and I enjoy that. I thrive on that. My personality enjoys that. So
Right.
that's my why, is just getting to know those people and helping them out and having satisfied clients. Like, I don't just want them to I don't want it to be transactional. Here's your
Right.
bill. Thank you. See you later. I want them to be like, oh, you're a great guy. I look forward to sending my kids back and, being their attorney for the next 20 years.
Okay.
That's my why.
And then that's the culture of the practice too. So it's an extension of your belief, your value system that, drips down into the firm then, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with marketing, I'm gonna ask the question. With marketing, what types of marketing do you do? And then what do you look for? Why have you worked with and partnered with Valor Marketing as long as you have?
So for the first 6 years of the firm, we really didn't do any marketing. We had a bulletin in the church.
Okay.
Church bulletin. We had a flyer in there. Other than that, it was just all networking, referrals, and stuff like that. So partnering up with Valor Marketing was the first time we actually hired any marketing company. And it's just been wonderful. So many people are like, oh, we found you on Google. And so we've really seen those numbers rise dramatically, where now it's like 50% referrals and 50%, they found us on the internet. And that's a direct result of the good work you guys are doing.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any last questions, Joe?
For the people that are local listening, what are the best types of cases you like to take on?
Well, certainly any personal injury cases. We've taken on personal injury and wrongful death. Our firm's unique in that we can, initiate a probate for them because you have to have an executor appointed through the probate process in a wrongful death case. So we can handle the wrongful death and the probate. But any of those clients, if they need to have their estate planning done, they haven't had it done or need to have it reviewed, those are great referrals too.
Okay. And are you just licensed in the state of Washington?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So on behalf of our sponsors, A Advanced Services and Fuse Networks, my name's Galen.
I'm Joe.
We're coming at you in studio live with a guest from the Creative Block Studios in Seattle, Washington. Rob Idens, thank you for joining us today as our guest from the Iden's Law Group and Iden's Injury Law. So Iden's Law and idensinjury.com. You can find them online. But thanks for tuning and watching this episode of the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.